on Ora's first Mother's Day, and plus for my grandmother who came in from Israel to celebrate for her 18th great-grandchild. And I'm sure she's especially excited as it's the first Meyer great-grandchild born on this side of the ocean who will actually bear the name Meyer. On that note, we actually have a Mother's Day cake. That's a little bit of a surprise that we'll have after the speech. You can welcome to join. Okay, so what we basically wanted to speak to you about today is about our beautiful daughter, Dana Ayala, and especially her name. As I'm sure I've told many of you, as I'm sure we've told many of you, Yardena is named after Ora's father, Moshe Tzvi, Zichrono Livracha. The middle name, Ayala, is fairly straightforward, as Ora's father's middle name was Tzvi, and Tzvi means deer, and Ayala is female deer, so that connection was pretty easy, and we really like the name Ayala. Her first name, Yardena, on more of just a surface level to begin with, we were thinking just from the name, we really wanted to name our daughter after Ora's father. It meant a lot to us. And so we first started thinking about the name Moshe, which stems from Minamayim Mishitihu, from the water he was drawn. That Moshe Rabbeinu was drawn from the water. We just started thinking about water-related names, and we ultimately got to Yardena. But that's just on the surface level. In order to get to the deeper level, I actually want to set a little bit of context. In this upcoming week's Parsha, in Parsha Bamidbar and the following week in Parsha Naso, it addresses the accounting of the Jewish people as they were about to enter Eretz Yisrael. In actuality, however, this is actually the recounting of Bnei Israel, in that Bnei Israel were actually counted for the first time, taking place the first year after the Exodus from Egypt in preparation for building the Mishkan, for building the tabernacle. And at that time, Bnei Israel believed that they were about to travel into Eretz Yisrael together with their leader, Moshe Rabbeinu. However, ultimately this was not to be the case, and it was only the next generation that entered the land without their leader. And for this, a new counting was ultimately needed. Thus they had this recounting. Now, one difference that is noted by different Parshim, such as Rashi, Malbim, they note there's a difference in the second recounting. It specifically has the words, L'mishbechotam l'beit avutam, according to their families, according to their father's households. Which this does not appear, this phraseology does not appear in the first count. It doesn't talk about the family and about where they came from. And the Malbim explains that in this second counting, it was crucial for Bnei Israel to understand their precise family lineage in order for the Shekhinah, the divine presence, to rest amongst the people and the land. The first count happened on the heels of the Exodus as they were leaving Egypt. And they'd witnessed the miracles, they witnessed the plagues, they witnessed Kriyat Yamsuf, and they recognized the greatness of God. And therefore, they were fit to serve as a resting place for the Shekhinah. However, the latter generation no longer saw those miracles. They no longer could bear such testimony, and therefore it was their family that was crucial to pass on this Masorah to Bnei Israel so they could enter Eretz Yisrael, so they could enter the land without their leader, Moshe Rabbeinu, but with the knowledge of what he represented and of what God did for them. So now with this context, with this basic idea, I think I can now better explain the basics of our order. The Shabbos after Ora's father was diagnosed with cancer was Parsha Ba'et Chana. In that Parsha, Moshe Rabbeinu asks God that he wants to enter Eretz Yisrael, he wants to enter the land with his nation, with his people. God, however, responds, Ki lo tavor to Yarden hazeh. He said, you will not be able to enter the land. You will not be able to cross the Yarden. As Or will explain in more detail, her father would hold great value towards signs, towards symbols. He would very much read into things. And that Shabbos, right after he was diagnosed, he took it very much to heart that God was denying Moshe's request. However, by the same token, we now want to take the same idea, these same events, and place them in a new light with the birth of our daughter, Yardena Ayala. By naming our daughter Yardena, we want to highlight that river, the Yarden, the Jordan River, that Moshe Rabbeinu could not cross. But his family, his nation, did indeed cross, and it was with the Masorah that was passed down to them through their families. With that Mishbechotam L'beit Avutam, with their families, with the traditions, with their understanding, they were able to cross the Jordan. So too, we hope our daughter, Yardena Ayala, will grow up in a home and a family where the teachings, the lessons, the ideas of her grandfather will indeed be passed down and continue to live through her. Their name, Yardena Ayala, therefore symbolizes to us the idea of continuity, and we hope that she too will be inspired by the stories and truly connect to the Masorah of her Zaidi. Orva's going to speak a little bit more.
As Donnie discussed, by naming our daughter Yardena Ayala, Donnie and I want to help her understand my father's unique worldview. Specifically, my father often related to the experience of Bnei Israel in the desert, in that the hand of God clearly guided and sustained the Jewish people, providing food, shelter, and the Midrash discusses how even the clothing grew as needed. On a number of occasions, my father compared the way that God looked out for our family to the desert experience, describing how financial success coincided with the needs and growth of our family. However, unlike the desert with obvious signs of miracles, my father examined weekly Torah portions and considered the significance of gematrias to recognize the presence of God in daily life. Encountering the world through the lens of God in the Beit home meant that everything had a purpose, and therefore my father's actions and that of our family had to be purposeful and deliberate. For example, whenever my father would write a check for sukkah, he would say aloud whose memory it was for. Although as a child I did not understand why he was saying these phrases aloud, now that I do recognize the value of continuity that he was trying to convey, we hope that Yardena will also appreciate this as well. My parents created a home of strong family values that were underscored by chesed, Torah, and davening. There were never good excuses for not doing what was right, and religious values were at the heart of what was right. My father took tremendous pride when my siblings and I behaved through this Torah lens, and he was happy to accomplish these goals. As a student at Barnard, I started a volunteer reading program and didn't think twice before asking my dad to transport books that reflected in Teaneck to St. Luke's Hospital. For some reason, I thought that it was acceptable to request that the books be delivered during business hours, yet I still remember that my father had such a huge smile when he picked me up, the back of his car packed with used books. During the months battling his illness, my father took great pleasure in hearing about my chesed activities. Though his strength was lessening, he took vicarious pleasure knowing that I, along with my siblings and mother, were continuing the work that he had started. Donnie and I look forward to, please God, raising Yardena with the religious and communal values that were instilled in us through the lessons of both our parents. Our parents have already been a tremendous help to us in general, and during these eventful past 3 weeks. It means so much to us that Savta is here from Israel. And my father always stressed the importance of family, and we are incredibly lucky to have such a strong network of support and love. Again, I don't know how we would have gone through these past few weeks and throughout this entire pregnancy process without the support of our family and their knowledge. We know that Yardena is going to love having so many wonderful aunts, uncles, and especially cousins. Our nieces and nephews were enthusiastically awaiting her arrival and are excited to now have another mutual cousin from both sides. Most of all, I feel so blessed to have Donnie as a partner in creating a home of our own. You are my role model and source of strength. Yardena is so lucky to have you as her father, or Abba. All right, well, and thank you. I just want to reiterate to thank everyone for coming.